Hi, I'm Mike Dano with Light Reading, and we're here with John and Bejoy from Mavenir. We're here to get an update on Mavenir, which is one of sort of the big players in Open RAN right now. In fact, I can't think of a company that's got more to say about Open RAN in the US, at least so far lately. So maybe, Bejoy, maybe you can just kind of give us a real brief update on kind of where Mavenir is as a company, and then we'll talk a little bit more about some Open RAN stuff.
Sure, so thank you for having Mavenir.
Yeah.
As a company, we've grown significantly over the last several years. The company is around 15 years old for many folks who may not know. We started on the core side, IMS, voice and messaging, and then we've been going down the chain, starting with packet core, and now we have been working in the Open RAN space for the last 6-7 years. So today, if you look at the core side, we have significant market share. So when you look at virtualized deployments, we lead compared to even the traditional players who've had traditional box solutions. We started a software company in the core. We carry more than 4 trillion messages in a year. So from the operator side, that's a lot. I mean, it's more than 60% of the world's messaging is carried on Mavenir's infrastructure. When it comes to packet core, we got in that space around 6 to 8 years ago. We built a complete 5G core portfolio, and now we're getting very good traction there, especially with all the move towards cloud nativeness and public clouds. That's a big positioning for Mavenir. And then continued investment in the radio space. That includes, we'll talk later, I assume, about OpenBeam portfolio, as well as the software side. We've been leading that space. In addition, we're also investing in many emerging areas around private networks, AI analytics, so those are also solutions. And so as a company, we have an end-to-end software portfolio, and at the same time, from an investor perspective, we're currently owned by Ceres Capital. There's also Koch Industries, which is the largest private company in the US. They've invested a good amount of money in Mavenir earlier last year, and they continue to be a significant avenue for us to push our private network solutions as well, because they own a lot of private network opportunities with Georgia Pacific, Infor, and other companies that are big in this space. So as a company, we're doing really well. As I mentioned, employee base, we've grown significantly in the last couple of years as well. We're now close to 6,000 employees.
6,000 employees?
Yes.
Wow, okay.
250 plus operators globally that we support, and in the Open RAN space, as you rightly said, we are the company. I mean,
yeah,
there's nobody
nice
else
and
to
loud,
beat us.
making sure to get that message across.
Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah. I mean, the size and scale is pretty impressive. You know, given all the competitors in the market, and so, I mean, you know, like you said, your business is big. It goes across a lot of different things. Open RAN is really the hot topic that we've been talking about right now, and Mavenir is one of the very early vendors for Dish Network, and obviously Dish Network has been a huge topic particularly in the U.S. industry as it builds a brand new 5G network here in the country. And so you were just saying before we started recording that you guys have been there since the start. How is it going with Dish? And they certainly have had some delays, which doesn't necessarily surprise those of us who understand the difficulties of launching a nationwide 5G network. But maybe you can talk about kind of how the work has been going with Dish. What are the delays, and is the launch coming along?
I mean, you must have attended the investor conference they did in Vegas recently, right? So it's testament to the fact that you have a network using Open RAN live in the US today in the Las Vegas market. And even compared to Rakuten, there are some differences which may have contributed to some of the delays that Dish is talking about. The first fact is the first time you're running a solution within a public cloud. So it's not just a trial proof of concept kind of activity that many operators have announced, or an edge computing sort of partnership that the big 3 operators have announced with the hyperscalers for using Outpost and supporting public and private MEC kind of solutions. This is a true full core radio solutions, everything, software starting from the CU, the 5G core, messaging, productized and running in the public cloud, which is a significant new effort. When you talk about using automation tools in your own private network, now you're talking about a pipeline which integrates the on-prem deployment for DU with the CU deployment that's running automatically in AWS. So today we go through hundreds of CU deployments a night, and right now we have close to 700 CUs that are deployed in AWS different local zones, which allows the deployment nationwide. So it's a significant achievement, I would say. And when you look at the grand scheme of things and what Dish has achieved in this time period, it's still a mammoth effort when you compare it to the work that's been done by traditional players and the way that has progressed over the years. This is building out a full brand new network on infrastructure that's shared with the hyperscalers. So local use of the local zones, use of new infrastructure like outpost hardware, regions and others, and the use of automation tools. And the fact that you're able to use the same tools in end-to-end manner for analytics, for observability, that's one of the key things which I'm sure Mark Ruan talks about a lot as well, the benefit of actually being able to capture every piece of data that goes to the network and being able to glean information out of it, to do closed-loop automation. Those would have the benefits of this true cloud-native network would come to fruition, and they talk significantly about this network scheme, right? This is what would enable the network to offer network slicing and private network kind of opportunities. So we're very happy to be part of the journey. We treat it as a big success for us.
Yeah, it's officially working.
Well, there's also other, some real firsts in there. And I said to Mark Ruan yesterday, since they're very humble about some of the actual things they've tackled and got done. When we started the journey, we were looking at how do they use the limited spectrum they have, and in reality they've got slithers of spectrum across the bands that they'd accumulated over a period of time, and so straight out of the gate, there's tri-band radios, asymmetrical bandwidth, 5G, voice over NR already deployed, and in a sense there's a lot of technicalities that had to be addressed in not only doing it with Open RAN, but just addressing clear spectrum issues and performance issues, to give a competitive service. And to that extent,
it is the first network in the US that's going to be using truly Warner. Right, you talked about T-Mobile has launched a standalone network, Verizon, AT&T have not yet, but Dish would be the first ones where we have truly productized voice over NR. 3-carrier aggregation is another big one, which is announced.
All these firsts, all
these are first.
Yeah, and that sort of gets lost in the noise because everybody's conscious of are they going to meet the timeline?
Yeah,
but,
exactly.
But there's a ton of stuff under there which is, it's taken engineering work, and I said to somebody the other day, it's from procreation to birth, and it just takes time to get some of this stuff done.
But 2 years to launching 20% coverage of the population, that's a pretty serious achievement, I would say, given the amount of money and time that all the other carriers are spending on their networks. So, kind of in relation to that, John, I know that you have been very vocal in sort of on both a national and international stage about the importance of Open RAN, what it'll do for the industry, that kind of thing. And I'm assuming that Mavenir's work with Dish and the progress that we've seen, I'm assuming that you would say that's helping bolster your argument.
Justification for the really going through this transition in the telco industry. It's about openness, it's about open and interoperable specifications. I think we've heard a lot in the last day or so about Cloud RAN, which is still a proprietary solution. People jump on it and try and confuse it as being open, but the whole philosophy of building the network with Dish, that everybody's problems were shared on the same table, that there's everybody can see the challenges at hand, and all the suppliers working together to solve the interoperability issues, because in the beginning there's sort of been interpretations of the spec in terms of bits and bytes upside down and stuff like that, which you naturally get, and so we've helped each other get that sorted out, and to the extent now that this is really become a global opportunity. I think it was actually one of your papers that talked about 87% of the operators now, looking at Open RAN, essentially, and it's
which is a big change from just a few years ago.
And 4 years ago it was all about can Open RAN meet the cost targets, and then we'll worry about everything else. Now the least thing they worry about is the cost, and they're saying, where can I truly get the functionality and control of my network? And I think the next stage, if you like, in terms of the Open RAN discussion is all about the radio interface controller, the RIC. And what's got missed out of a lot of the discussions is the fact that really to get the true benefits out of an Open RAN network, you need the E2 interface. And certainly two of the big vendors just don't talk about it, because again, it's another way to lock proprietariness into the network by closing down the E2 interface and just dealing with the SON interfaces that they deal with today. So, that's the sort of next level of messaging I think we're really getting to, but you're seeing X-apps, really being able to give the performance benefits of capacity gain, spectral gain, and I think Dish again will be one of the first.
And here you go. You've got another Open RAN topic that you're pushing. I'm always watching what you're having to say about Open RAN. That's sort of the latest.
The other aspect to think about is when you think about international, there's a lot of brownfield deployments as well. So
right.
Dish often brings up the question: is Open RAN only good for greenfield deployments? And with the announcements that we've done in DT, as an example, the ORAN Town announcements that happen, these are brownfield deployments that are happening with the Vodafone, Airtel deployment that's happening in India. These are brownfield deployments, and it's showing that Open RAN is actually able to meet those requirements.
And so with the few minutes we have left, I did want to ask you about what I think is a relatively new line of business for Mavenir, which is actual physical radios. I mean, you guys have been doing software for a long time, and now you're getting into hardware, which is, as you well know, is pretty interesting because the whole discussion about Open RAN is mixing and matching vendors, and so you guys going up the stack and getting into hardware is interesting. So maybe you guys can talk about just what that line of business means, what it means for Open RAN, and then also how's it going? Like, how are these sales of these OpenBeam hardware radios going?
The first piece of it, Mavenir's been very open from day one that really the supply of open radios in the marketplace has been truly constrained. There's been no US supplier effectively where you could go get radios from. It's really pretty much Nokia and Ericsson really had the market sewn up with proprietary interfaces. So we looked at it for a while, and in the end we felt, look, we've got to put our toes in the water and actually develop open radios that people can buy. And I think we press released with AudioStar about a couple of years ago about working together, and we've been working together with a lot of radio manufacturers, but again, it's where the industry is to where the operators need us to be in terms of massive MIMO and some of the global frequency bands. So I think at Mobile World Congress we announced like eight platforms of radio from millimeter wave, 32T, 32R, 64T, 64R. Right the way down to 2T, 2R type radios that are needed on a global marketplace. So, we're really at the front end of that. The first radios are being deployed now in the US. I think we announced the deal with Triangle for the rip and replace.
Oh, okay. They're using OpenBeam radios?
Yes, they're still using Mavenir radios in that deployment. So it's really just starting to happen in terms of but Mavenir has really invested now in a very big way in terms of design test capability for radios. But again, we're trying to keep them open to all. We're working with other radio manufacturers in terms of software development and stuff like that. So we're really promoting openness for radios, and we just got to see how this comes out at the end. But
this is pushing on the market essentially.
Yep.
Yeah.
And also, the way to think about it is doing the radio is an accelerant for the software business, right? So if there's no radio that exists, the software side doesn't actually move as well. So that's the primary driver. We got into it out of necessity because, as John mentioned, the radio market in Open RAN outside of NEC, Fujitsu, even though Ericsson promotes Cloud RAN or Nokia talks about Open RAN, those radios are not being exposed unless the operator forces them to open up the radio. In that case, you have to go work one-on-one with these vendors to make sure the ECPRI specifications are aligned versus them complying fully to a CUSM ORAN-based radio, which then means the management plane, the synchronization, the control user plane is all standardized, and you have profiles which are interoperability tested. That way you could mix and match this. So our radios are fully ORAN compliant radios we're building. On the hardware side, we did acquire a company called IP Access in late 2020. Okay. So that's also on the small cell side. We have there mostly we do the all-in-one radios and split two kind of radios which can support the private network deployments as well. And that we've got millions of deployments today. Versus the OpenBeam portfolio is purely a split 7.2 ORAN-based implementation. And as John mentioned, we've got 88 different platforms that we've built, which covers dual band, tri-band, millimeter wave, massive MIMO, and across that covers for us today around 20 plus products. So from these 8 platforms, we built 20 plus products. And we truly differentiate there in terms of the not using fans as an example, as opposed to some of the other players that's out there, using new power saving mechanisms like GAN and within the radio, which means that these radios are much lighter Volume-wise, they're better as well, and it's really competitive is what we're seeing when we're discussing it with operator customers. The Open RAN radios, price-wise and feature-wise, as well as weight and dimensioning, it is all meeting the requirements that the operators have. So we're doing pretty well.
Doing pretty well.
And we built a team of probably nearly 500 people just to
do that.
Focused at that space. Yeah,
Pretty serious. There you go.
Yep.
Update from Mavenir. Thanks so much for being with us today.
Pleasure.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Great.